Okay, good evening, everyone. It's the seventh night of the Dine and Learn 2018. It's August 13th. Next week, Emir Hashem, will be the grand finale. This week, I thought we would talk a little bit about Chumros and how the Chumros came up in the 1500s. But before that, I just want to finish last week's topic. So if you have a sheet for number 6, we were talking about, if you remember, whether someone who's Jewish can ever lose that status if they convert to another religion, particularly Christianity, which people were forced to convert, and some became willing converts. So we discussed that there was one opinion that someone who converts to another religion is no longer Jewish. And there are two proofs that we haven't discussed. Number one is source 7 on the sheet. So Gemara in Yevamah is talking about a convert. So the Taval, the Allah, so the Mishnah says a convert who goes into the mikvah and then comes out, Harehu ke Yisrael l'chol devarav. So he's like a Jew for all matters, all purposes. So the Gemara thinks that's a little strange. Why those extra two words, l'chol devarav? Harehu ke Yisrael, he's Jewish, period. Why does it add l'chol devarav? So it says the Gemara l'may hilchasa, di hadar be, because if he returns to the paganism that he came from, Umekadish Bas Yisrael, and he then marries a Jewish woman, does that work or not? If a non-Jew marries a Jewish woman, so then there's no Kiddushin at all. So it says the Gemara, Yisrael Mumar Karinan Bey. We call him a wayward Jew, the Kiddush of Kiddushin. Once he converts, once he becomes Jewish, even if he returns to his old ways, he's Jewish no matter what. So it's a Kavachomer. If a convert can't go back, so a Jew who was born Jewish can never leave Judaism. So that would seem to be a proof against the whole idea that a forced convert or a willing convert to Christianity or any other religion is not Jewish. So if you remember, we quoted Rabbi Yehuda Balan, the Mahari Beirav quoted Rabbi Yehuda Balan, who apparently was a rabbi in Spain, to the best of my knowledge. So he interprets this Gemara differently. He says the I Hadar Be, because a convert has to change all of their practices. They have to now keep kosher, they have to keep Shabbos, they have to keep everything. So if they go back on any one practice, they stop keeping kosher, but they keep the other 612 mitzvos, so then we say, no, he's still Jewish. But if a convert goes 100% back to his old religion and violates all 613 mitzvos and doesn't identify as a Jew and doesn't do anything as a Jew, so then this Gemara doesn't even apply, says Rabbi Yehuda Balan. That convert loses his Jewish status. And the same goes for any Jew, he says. Any Jew who stops practicing Judaism and stops doing any mitzvahs loses that status as a Jew. Okay? So that source 8 is Gemara Sanhedrin Ben Dalet Amud Aleph. I think someone mentioned it last week. So if you remember from Sefer Yehoshua, they conquered Yericho. The Jewish people conquered Yericho in a miraculous way. And they vowed that nobody's allowed to touch the spoils from the city. And someone did. Achan. So says the Gemara, that quotes the pasuk, says, Chata Yisrael, the Jewish people sinned, and really there's only one Jew who sinned. So one Jew sinned. So Amar Rabbi Abba Bar Zavda, Af al pi shechata, even though he sinned, Yisrael who? He's still Jewish. Achan was still Jewish even though he sinned. So Amar Rabbi Abba, Hainu da Amri, Inshi, this is what people say, Asa de kaibini chilfi, a hadas, a myrtle, that's among thorns, Asa Shmei v'Asa Korele. It's still known as a hadas. Even though it's surrounded by thorns, it doesn't lose its name, doesn't lose its status. It's still a myrtle, wherever it is. Continues the Gemara, Vegam Avru es Brisi. The Jewish people violated the covenant. 1. Asher Tzivisi Osam, that I commanded them. Gam Lakchu min hacherim. They took from the spoils. 2. Gam Ganvu. They stole. Gam kicheshu, and they lied, they contradicted, they denied it. Gam samu bechleihem, 5. They also put it in their bags. So there are 5 verbs about what they did wrong. So Amar Rabbi Ilah Mishum Rabbi Yehuda Bar Misparta Melamed she'avar Achan al Chamish Chum Shetorah. So we learn from here that Achan violated all 5 books of Moses, all the mitzvos. Achan violated.
Does that mean all 613?
All 613. That's the implication here. So what do we do with this Gemara? How could we say that a Jew who converts to Christianity loses his status as a Jew? Afa pi shechata Yisraelhu. Even though he sins, he's still Jewish. So the Mahashtam says like this. Where do we learn it out from? We learned it out from Achan. What did Achan do wrong? He violated one commandment. He stole from the spoils of Yericho. So a convert to Christianity, someone who leaves Judaism for Christianity, he violates all 613 mitzvos. So that you can't prove from Achan because Achan only did one avera, while this person does 613 averas, so to speak. So he says, you should be saying, well, what about the Gemara literally says he violated all 5 books of Moses, all the mitzvos. Says the Maharshtam, no, that's just a single opinion. He's coming to disagree on the previous opinion. The Tanakama, the original opinion is that Achan only did one avera, and then there's just one opinion that says he violated all the mitzvos. So says the Maharshtam, we paskin like the first opinion, and therefore, if you violate one sin, if you commit one sin, you're still Jewish. But if you commit all the sins, you lose your status as a Jew. So that is this. I emphasize this because it's just such a unique, strange, counterintuitive opinion to us. And nobody passes like this. Nobody at all. Nobody even mentions these opinions anymore. We all follow the opinion of the Maggid Mishnah, who actually lived in Spain, Rav Vidal of Tolosa, who holds that if you're born to a Jewish mother, you're Jewish, period. End of story. So that's halacha l'maisa. We don't follow any of this, but I found it fascinating, especially in the context of these people who their colleagues, their friends, their relatives were forced converts to Christianity, and they were saying that they're not Jewish or their kids are not Jewish. It's a big chiddush. Okay. So moving on, I said we talk about Chumros. So we can move on to sheet 7. So when you think about what's going on in the world at that time, and in this time, when we have so many people from different communities living together, and they didn't, in the olden days, when people moved to a community, you accepted all the halachas, all the minhagim of that community. That's not how it happened in those days, because people moved as communities. Everybody had, so you're living next to each other, you have people who follow one view, people who follow another. You had the Ashkenazim, the Sephardim sitting next to each other. The question is, can they eat from each other's food? So there's this one wild Gemara that comes up a lot in this time period because it's just so difficult to understand. And the Ralbach himself offers 3 interpretations. So that's source 1 on page 7. It's Cholin Daf Kuf Yud Amud Beis. So just a little background. So if meat is cooked in a pot, the pot absorbs the taste of meat. So 1 degree absorption. Or really, it's a 2nd degree taste. The meat is number 1, and then the pot is number 2. So then if you cook something parav in the pot, that parav food has a 2nd degree, or really 3rd degree. It's a nosin tam, bar nosin tam. It's a not bar not. It's a 3rd degree taste of meat. But the meat is kosher. If it's not kosher, that's not what we call not bar not the isura. That's one case. But here we're talking about not bar not the hetera, kosher meat in this parav food. So the case discussed in the Gemara is fish. You cook fish in a meat pot, so the fish absorbs into it a 3rd degree, a not bar not, of this meat. Can you eat it with something milchik? Or is that meat and milk together, which you can't do? So machlokas. So says the Gemara, itmar, dagim she'alu be'ka'ara, fish that's cooked in a meat pot. Rav Amar also la'achlan bekutach. Rav said you're not allowed to eat it with a dairy food. Ushmul Amar mutar la'achlan bekutach. And Shmuel says you're allowed to eat it with a dairy food. It's not barnat the hitera. You're allowed to. It's not considered fleshik. It's so far removed. We're not worried about the sakana.
No, I'm not going there. The first example that you cited was 3rd degree.
Meat, then pot, then parav food. So it's a 3rd degree. It's a not barnat. The first not is 2nd degree. The second not, the not barnat, is a 3rd degree. So that's the Rabbi Elazar. So here's the story. Story of the Gemara. Rabbi Elazar havakaim kami demar Shmuel. Rabbi Elazar came to visit Shmuel. Rabbi Elazar was a Talmud of Rav, but he came to visit one of the Gedolei Hador, Shmuel. And he went to his house. Aisu lakame dagim shalu b'kara. So you have a guest in your house, so you feed them. So Shmuel fed him fish that was cooked in a meat pot, which Shmuel held as mutter, but Rabbi Elazar's Rabbi Rav holds as aser. And he said, here, eat it with some dairy food. So Yahiv le, he gave it to Rabbi Elazar, v'lo achal. Rabbi Elazar refused to eat it. Amalei, so then Shmuel said, L'Rabach Yehivile v'achal. I gave it to your Rebbe, Rav. I gave it to him. I fed it to him, and he ate it. V'at lo achalt, and you're not going to eat it? You're frummer than your Rebbe? Well, so then it gets even more interesting. So then, a later time, Rabbi Elazar went to Rav and said, Asal akame de Rav, Amalei, Hadar beimar mishmaite. Did you change your mind? So Amalei, so Rav said, I don't know what you're talking about. Chas leil zare de Abba bar Abba. No, chas v'shalom, that Shmuel should ever delispili midi v'los firule, that he should feed me food that I hold is not kosher. So Shmuel said he did feed it to him. Rav said, no, he didn't feed it to me. I don't know what he's talking about. Strange. It's so strange that there are many, many different interpretations of it. So I've just shared with you a few of them because it's relevant to when you have an Ashkenazi and a Sephardi or an Italian and a Sicilian living side by side, each following their own minhagim.
This is inconsistent. Either he did or he didn't eat it.
Right. Did he eat it? Did he not? Why did Shmuel feed it to him if he didn't change his mind? What's going on? It's just the thing doesn't make sense. So one simple explanation the Rabach offers is just a miscommunication. Shmuel thought Rav had changed his mind, but Rav didn't. So Shmuel said, I didn't actually feed him fish that was cooked in a meat pot, but I would have. I would have feed him fish to your Rebbe. I would feed it, and he would eat it. So I'm feeding it to you. You should eat it. And Rabbi Elazar misunderstood, and he thought it actually happened. So he went to Rav and said, did this happen? And Rav said, no. Okay. That's one explanation of the Rabach. So another possibility is that Shmuel fed Rav regular fish, cooked in a par of pan, normal fish. But Rav didn't ask, what did you cook it in? Rav didn't ask, was this cooked in a fleshig pan? So therefore, Shmuel assumed, since he didn't ask, that Rav changed his mind and would have eaten it even if it was cooked in a fleshig pan. While Rav said, well, of course he's going to feed it, he's going to cook it in a par of pan because he's not going to give me something that I hold as aser. So Shmuel thought Rav had changed his mind because he didn't ask the question, but Rav didn't ask the question because he knew Shmuel wouldn't feed it to him. And so that's the Rabach. So there's a question asked to the Mahashdam, and in that question he offers what I think is a great answer. Shmuel was trying to test Rebbe Elazar. Why would Rebbe Elazar not eat so-called fleshig fish with milk, with dairy? Is it because out of deference to Rav, who's his Rebbe and one of the Gedolei Hador, or is it because he really holds it? So how does he find out what Rebbe Elazar really, why he won't eat it? By taking Rav out of the picture. So he tells him, look, Rav would have eaten this. So why will you eat it or not? And the answer was, Rebbe Elazar personally held it was aser. So good. So Shmuel found out. He didn't give, Rebbe Elazar didn't eat anything he didn't feel comfortable with. But Rebbe Elazar didn't understand what was going on. So then he went to Rav and said, did you change your mind? He didn't understand. Shmuel was just trying to get out of him subtly what his position was. So I'll just give you one other explanation that is a little mystical. There's a story told of the Vilna Gaon. Of course, the Maharshalam was not quoting the Vilna Gaon. He lived a few hundred years beforehand. The story told of the Vilna Gaon as follows. There was a person in Vilna who had a shaila on a chicken. And at the same time, the question was brought to the Vilna Gaon and to the Rav of Vilna. The Vilna Gaon answered, it's aser. The Rav of Vilna answered, it's mutter. And when the Rav of Vilna found out that the Vilna Gaon had given an answer, he realized he had a problem. He's the Mardas, or he's the Rav of Vilna. He's the one who's assigned to Paskin. They have to follow what he says. The Vilna Gaon himself has to follow him. That's just the rules. So he took the chicken, cooked the soup out of it, brought a bowl to the Vilna Gaon and said, you have to eat this. Otherwise, you're undermining the Rav of Vilna. And the Vilna Gaon agreed. He said, you know what? I have to. Even though I hold this aser, you're the Rav. I have to do what you say. And as they bring it to the table, somehow a drop of milk falls into the soup, as the story goes, and then boom, the Vilna Gaon doesn't have to eat something that he holds as aser. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu made sure that the Vilna Gaon would be taken care of. And that's the Gemara in Chulin. Gemara in Chulin says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu makes sure that tzaddikim ain't takala bali yadan, that they will not eat something that they feel is uncomfortable, that they think is usher, by mistake. It's a question whether it's only by eating or by other averos also, but at least by eating, Hashem will make sure that if they eat it, even by accident, they hold as mutter. So answers the Mahasham. Shmuel said, you know what? If Rav is right or wrong, we'll let God decide. I'll put the bowl in front of Rav. I won't tell him what it is. I'll put the fish cooked in the fleshik pot with dairy in front of Rav. I won't tell him what it is. If he eats it, it turns out he changed his mind and he doesn't hold his ulcer. If he doesn't eat it, so Hashem will make sure that he does hold his ulcer, therefore Hashem would not allow him to eat it. And what happened? So Shmuel put it in front of Rav. Rav ate it, not knowing what it was. So Shmuel deduced that Hashem proved that Rav didn't really hold that way. The whole time, Rav didn't know what was going on. He was not party to any of these considerations. So when Rabbi Loza came to ask Rav, he said, I don't know what you're talking about. Never happened. But it did happen. Shmuel tested Rav through this mystical test. Okay. So Lamaisa, everybody agrees that if you invite someone over your house, you're not allowed to feed them food that they hold as asur, whether it's their personal opinion or it's their minhag. So if you invite a Sephardi over, you have to make sure that the food is kosher according to Sephardic standards. You use the right utensils that Sephardim would hold as mutter to use, and vice versa. Ashkenazim, Hasidim, Germans, Polish, whatever. You have to find out what your guests' minhagim are and accommodate them. And if you're invited, you can assume, as long as it's not something obscure, as long as your host knows about it, you can assume they're accommodating you, because it's asur for them, it's lifnei iver, for them to feed you something that you hold is asur. Okay, let's talk about a different kind of chumrah. So we talked about how tzvas, in that time period of the 1500s, was really the Ir HaTorah in Eretz Yisrael. Yerushalayim was very difficult to live with. Only the Rabach and maybe 200 families could live there. It was populated by Spanish exiles primarily and other Middle Eastern Jews. But the leading Gedolim there were mainly Sephardic exiles. And so the halacha they followed was Sephardic Psak halacha. Except for one guy. Around the year 1570, someone from Germany, Rav Yosef Ashkenazi, moved to Eretz Yisrael, and he had his own funny way of doing things. And rather than adopting the minhagim of tzvas, he did things his own way. So let's see how disruptive it was. So if you look at source on page 7, source number 2. Now keep in mind, living in Israel is different than living in America for many ways, but in particular, and this, when I visit Israel, my mother, I keep having to remind her, you can't just buy vegetables from some guy on the street. You have to know, does it have a hechsher? Or if it doesn't, you have to take out Chumros and Maasros. So this guy moved from Germany to Israel, settled in Sfas, and he decided, so look at the Rambam. Source number 2, Peiros ha'akum. So fruits that are grown by Gentiles in Israel, shegadlu berkarka, shekana be'eretz Israel, that they grow in land that they own. The non-Jew owns the land. He owns the fruits. He's in nigmar melachta biyad akum. The Gentile does everything in the planting and the harvesting, umerchan ha'akum, and the winnowing, everything that needs to be done, the non-Jew does. He just brings it to the market and sells it. Pturin miklum. You don't have to take Chumros and Maasros from it. Shenemar degan chav lo degan akum. Because the Torah says it has to be from your grain, not from the grain of a Gentile. So seen from the Rambam, like we just said, if non-Jews grow fruits, grow produce, grow vegetables, a Jew can buy it, and you don't have to take Chumros and Maasros. And that's what they did in Sfas. Rav Yosef Ashkenazi comes and he says, no, we have to take Chumros and Maasros from these fruits and vegetables. So what does he do with the Rambam? So he says, look, it says, Pturin miklum. He says it's pater. You don't have to take Chumros and Maasros on a biblical level, midiraisa, but midirabanan you still have to. It's a little hard to read. That's what he says. So who cares? Okay, so let him take Chumros and Maasros. Means he can't eat in anyone else's house. And if it was just him, okay, no. But he was teaching people. He was telling people, these rabbis are so lenient. Look, you have to follow the halacha. And so the students, some of the Talmidim there, started following his practice. they tell the story of Betzalel Ashkenazi. So Betzalel Ashkenazi, he wrote the Shita Mekubetzes. So he was traveling to Yerushalayim from Tzfas, and there's some yeshiva bacher with him. And the yeshiva bacher was hungry. He was starving. He hadn't eaten in a long time. He refused to eat the food that Rabbi Betzalel Ashkenazi was offering him because he held of this chumrah that you have to take Chumros and Maasros even from Gentile fruits and vegetables. You're traveling with one of the Gedolei Hador, Chavrus of the Arizal, and you won't eat his food. It was disruptive. It was disrespectful. So what else do you have to worry about in Eretz Yisrael? Every 7 years you have a Shemitah. So when is the Shemitah? So this is actually not so clear. If you look at the Rambam, source 3, in Hilchah Shemitah, so Perik Yud, and then we'll just skip around, but Halacha Dal and Halacha Vav. So what year was the Mishnah Torah written? I'm about to tell you, because the Rambam writes it. Ulefi cheshbon zeh. Here's how you count it's the Machokas in the Gemara, how you count, and how you count the years of the Shemitah. It's the Gemara in Erchin. So Ulefi cheshbon zeh, according to this way of counting, Shana Zo, this year, that he's writing this, the Rambam's writing this, Shehi Shnas Elef Umeya V'Sheva L'Chorban, 1107 years after the Chorban. The Chorban he was here in year 69. So 1107, that means it's 1175 that he's writing it. 1176 that he's writing. Shnas Shmonim V'Shiva V'Elef V'Arba Meos Minyan Shtaros. This is the number of years from Minyan Shtaros. Remember, in Egypt, they followed Minyan Shtaros until the Radbaz came and abolished it. Shehi Shnas Sheish V'Shloshim V'Tshameos V'Arbas Alofim Liyitzira. 4936. So he Shnas Shemitah. So the year 1176, 4936, that was a Shemitah, according to the Rambam's way of counting. The Rambam continues, Shnas Shemitah Yeduahi Umufersemes, but which year Shemitah is well known, it's famous among the Geonim Ve'anshe Eretz Yisrael. Why would the people in Eretz Yisrael know when Shemitah is? Mordechai. Why would the people in Eretz Yisrael know when the Shemitah is? Because they observed it every 7 years. Every 7 years. They lived there. Every 7 years. So the people in Eretz Yisrael, they have a Masorah. So Lefi Cheshbon Zeh, according to their Masorah, Shana Zo, Shishnas Sheva Umeya Ve'elef L'Chorban. So this year, 1176, 4936, Modzai Shvis is a year after Shemitah. So the Rambam says, the way I paskin, 1176 is Shemitah. But the Masorah of the Gaonim, the tradition that the Gaonim and the people in Israel had, was 1175 was Shemitah. So what do you do? Va'al zeh anu somchin. He says, we follow the tradition, follow the Masorah. Ukefi hacheshbon zeh anu morin. And according to this cheshbon, we paskin le'inyan maasros, ushvis, v'ashmatas ksafim, all the halachas that relate to the fruit and vegetables in Eretz Yisrael follow this count at 1175 was Shemitah. Sheha Kabbalah v'ha'maisa amudim gedolim b'hara, because the tradition and the practice, the minhag, we follow the minhag. So it's an important pillar of teaching halacha. Uvehen roi lahitolos, and we should follow that. So the Rambam is saying he holds one way, 1176 is Shemitah, and he paskins against himself. So just an interesting point. What does the Ravid do here? He says, no, I paskin like the Rambam. It's the only place in all of Mishnah Torah where the Rambam paskins against himself and the Ravid paskins no, like the Rambam. So this Rav Yosef Ashkenazi said, I also paskin like the Rambam. So even though in Sfas they observed the year, I think it was 1574 at Shemitah, he held the next year was Shemitah. So everybody was Motzai Shemitah for them, if it was no longer Shemitah, and he observed Shemitah. It's a little bit of a chutzpah to come to a community where all of Eretz Yisrael has a Masorah for 1,000 or 2,000 or who knows how many years, which year Shemitah, and he observes the next year, like the Rambam.
When was the first Shemitah?
The first Shemitah was after they came to Eretz Yisrael in the times of the Yeshua and the Shoftim. But the count got messed up because when you stop observing Yovel after the first Chorban, so then the 50th year is in between Shemitahs. So once they stopped observing the Yovel, so Shemitah, it was a cycle of 49 years instead of 50 years. So you're saying, why can't you just go back and count it all the way to the beginning? That's what the Rambam did, and he ended up a year past.
So a lot of people, there might have been opinions that didn't agree with this count either, then I
It's because in the Gemara there are also different opinions. So you have to put together two different machlokas in the Gemara and then figure out how to count.
So today, does everybody have the same count?
We all follow the Masorah today. Nobody is machmir, to my knowledge. It's probably some guy, I don't know. But to my knowledge, everybody follows the same year of Shemitah, especially because we hold Shemitah when there's no Yovel. Shemitah is the Rabbanan. So if there's a suffix, well, you should be Mekel.
And who put the final imprimatur of the stamp saying, this is it? Who made the final? Was it the Rambam?
I think it was the Rambam who said, I don't pass it like myself. And after that, who's gonna disagree with the Rambam against himself? Except for, some very machmir Ashkenazi guy who came. So the question is, what do you do with such a guy? It's disruptive, and he's starting to. And who lived in Sfas in those days? Super from people. These are the people who are learning Kabbalah, who are really making this kesher with the Kodesh Baruch Hu, and they want to do the best of the best. So a lot of the students are starting to take up these chumros against who was the Rav in Eretz Yisrael at the time? The Shulchan Aruch. Rav Yosef Karo was living in Sfas at the time. He and the Mabit were the two Gedolim in Sfas. And you also had the Radbaz living in Sfas. These are big people, the Rebbe Sal Ashkenazi living in Sfas, telling them, don't be machmir. So what they did is they put out a cherem. Anyone who's machmir on these things is excommunicated. And you know what happens when you put out a cherem? It doesn't work. Didn't work. So it came to the Maharstam. So the question, so first they had the Shaila, and the conclusion was, we'll make a cherem. The cherem didn't work, so the question, then the students started asking Shailas, do we have to follow this cherem? So the question went to Salonika. You can't ask in Sfas, because they're all biased, right? So they went to Salonika, they asked the Maharstam, do we have to follow this cherem? So even if I, a student in Sfas, or a rabbi or a balabos in Sfas, follow the minhag of Sfas, do I have to avoid all these people who are machmir? Because a cherem means you can't talk to them, you can't be within daled amos of them, you can't stand anywhere near them. So do I have to follow this cherem? So they went to the Maharstam. And the Maharstam says, first of all, before we get there, so Rabbi Yosef Ashkenazi, so what's he thinking? Who does he think he is? As follows. He's clever, a little too clever. If you remember, 2 years ago, we learned Smak over the summer. And I mentioned, just in passing, I think, at one point, so the biggest of the Balei Tosfos was Rabbeinu Tam. Then the second biggest was his nephew, the Ri, who's known as the Ri Balei Tosfos. He really started the whole Tosfos enterprise. And after the Ri, the third biggest, is generally agreed, was the Rash, Reb Shimshon from Shans. The Rash Mishans. He has a parish on Mishnayos and on Torah Kohanim. So he, in the 1200s, he made Aliyah. So it's getting really bad for Jews in France. Not long after, they expelled the Jews from France. So he and a lot of Talmidei Chachamim made Aliyah in the 1200s. And when Reb Shimshon of Shans got to Eretz Yisrael in the 1200s, he was machmir to take Chumros and Meiseres from fruits and vegetables that non-Jews grew. So Yosef Ashkenazi says, all you Sephardim think you established the minhag here, but no, you were the ones who came and changed, because 200 years ago, the Rash Mishans was machmir, and I'm just following the old minhag. So the Kesef Mishnah, Rav Yosef Karo, who lived at the time, said, no, that's not how minhagim work. When you got here, everyone in Israel followed the psak of the Rambam that we don't take Chumros and Meiseres from fruits and vegetables from a Gentile.
In spite of the Shams.
Despite however it developed, history of minhagim is interesting, but it doesn't matter. The minhag is what the minhag does. Minhag is as minhag does. So the minhag that they did at that time was, however it developed, is that everyone did not take Chumros and Meiseres. So you can't come, you think you're so smart, you can't come and say, I'm reviving the minhag, the Ashkenazi minhag in Eretz Yisrael. You have to follow what everybody else does. And how do I prove that? And how do I enforce that? You're in cherem. So they asked the Maharstam. And the Maharstam says, there are good chumras, so you have to know when to be machmir and when not to be machmir. So if you look at source 4, so Gemara Mishnah in Brachos, Daf Yudam Beis, B'Shamai Omrim Be'erev Kol Adam Yate V'Yikra. So you at night, Beis Shammai holds that at night it says B'Shachbecha. In the morning it says B'Kumecha. So you have to say Shema, Kriya Shema, B'Shachbecha, lying down at night. In Shul, you have to lie down and say Kriya Shema. or bend over or lean over or something to say Kriya Shema while lying down. In the morning, you have to stand up and shul to say Kriya Shema. That's Beit Shammai. And Beit Hillel says no. Wherever you're walking, you can say Kriya Shema. It doesn't matter whether you're standing or sitting. So at the end of the mission, it says, Amar Rabbi Tarfon, Ani hayisi baba derech, v'hitesi likros k'divrei Beit Shammai. So I was walking at night in the dark, and I lay down, or I leaned down to say Kriya Shema like Beit Shammai. V'sikati be'atzmi mipnei alistim. And it was dangerous because of the robbers, because of muggers. Amar lo kedah hayisalo fachov be'asmacha shavart al divrei Beit Hillel. You should have been in danger. You should have been in sakana because you didn't follow Beit Hillel. And the Gemara continues, and not only that he didn't follow Beit Hillel, but you have to be worried because maybe the Talmidim will see, and they'll establish the halacha like that for the generations. So says the Maharshtam, this Rabbi Yosef Ashkenazi, no, you want to be machmir, that's fine. Do it to yourself, don't let anybody know. Because once people know, they'll start thinking, oh, that's the real halacha. And then everybody after that will follow it, and not realize that it was just your chumrah, your personal chumrah. So we're running out of time, but I just want to, so source number 6 talks about Erev Tisha B'Av, how you can eat and drink to some degree, a good meal, even at the Suda HaMafsekes. And the Rambam says, but my minhag says the Rambam, is I only have bread, dry bread with water, and I sit on the floor and I cry. So the Rambam is machmir beyond the din, the halacha, and you know what? That's what we all do also. And then source number 7, the Torah says some people have the minhag of fasting for 2 days on Yom Kippur. And he said not only that, if there were 10 of them, they'd have their own minyan, and they do the full davening of Yom Kippur on the second day, the 11th day of Tishrei. So his father, the Rosh, said, no, you have to daven with everybody else. But other than that, don't eat, don't wash. You can be machmir as much as you want. So says the Maharshtam, there is a time and place to be machmir. This guy, Rav Yosef Ashkenazi, was making problems, and we should tell him to stop. But cherem is going too far. Says the Maharshtam, I don't think that cherem is right. I disagree. You don't have to follow the cherem. So next week in Mirz Hashem, I want to discuss the topic of who is a rabbi and who can paskin a shaila, because that comes up in this time. But what I would just want to emphasize for what we covered is that when you have different communities, you have to be sensitive, you have to be smart, you have to follow your minhag, but you also have to treat other people with respect, including the rabbanim, and don't think you're so much smarter than every rabbi. The worst case scenario, you can be machmir for yourself, but you shouldn't be machmir in public to show disrespect, especially when your rabbis are gedolei hador. Don't think you know more than the Beis Yosef and the Radbaz and everyone else. Follow the rabbis and follow your minhagim in private. So Mirz Hashem will continue next week.